The silver light of dawn touched the peaks of Eldrath, painting the kingdom in pale, cold beauty. Deep in the northern wing of the castle, where the shadows lingered longest, Leora stirred beneath her thin blanket. Her room was small, with stone walls that seemed to lean closer each night, whispering secrets only she could hear. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, carrying the scent of pine forests and distant snow. But it was not the cold or the stone that made her heart heavy. It was the knowledge that today would be different. The mating ceremony was announced. It was a time of magic and power, of kings choosing their brides from among the kingdom's young women. For centuries, the Alpha King had been the heart of Eldrath, a man both feared and admired. Whoever stood beside him would gain status, protection, and a place in the history of the realm. And yet for Leora, it was a cruel reminder of all that she was not. Her stepmother, Lady Vera, entered the room with her usual flourish. Gold threads caught the morning light in her hair, and her voice cut the air like a knife. "You will not attend the ceremony," Vera said, her eyes narrowing as she inspected Leora. "You are too plain, too weak. No one will see you as worthy, and I will not have our family disgraced by your foolish hopes." Leora lowered her eyes, the words sinking into her chest like stones. She had known this day would bring humiliation. Every morning had been the same. Vera reminding her of her supposed failings, whispering that beauty mattered above all else, and that strength was only for those born favored by fate. I understand, stepmother," Leora murmured, her voice barely rising above the rustle of the blankets. Vera huffed and turned away, tossing a gown at Leora with careless disdain. "Even if you were to appear at the ceremony, who would look at you? No man would see you and think of love, strength, or honor. You are nothing but a shadow." The gown was a deep green, embroidered with threads of silver meant to catch the light. Leora touched the fabric and felt a strange warmth, as if the threads themselves were alive. She shook her head. That warmth was nothing compared to the weight in her heart. Once her stepmother left, Leora sat at the small wooden table by the window. She had always been clever in secret, studying the books hidden in the shelves of the castle library, reading of spells, histories, and stories of ancient heroes who had risen from obscurity. She wondered if courage could matter more than appearance, if heart could matter more than beauty. Her fingers brushed the necklace she had worn since childhood. It was a delicate thing, a simple silver chain holding a veil of shimmering threads that glowed faintly in dim light. It had been her mother's before her, a woman whose beauty was spoken of in whispers long after her death. Leora's heart ached with longing for the mother she had never truly known. "Perhaps it is time," she whispered to herself. Her reflection in the glass was pale, her hair a muted brown, and her eyes seemed too small for a world that demanded grandness. But there was a fire there, faint and flickering, that no one, not even Vera, could see. By mid-morning, the castle was alive with preparations. Servants rushed through the halls, arranging flowers, lighting torches, and carrying silks that shimmered in the sun. From the main balcony, Leora could see the crowd gathering in the courtyard below. Young women, dressed in gowns of every hue, laughed nervously, their faces radiant with anticipation and hope. The Alpha King would choose from among them, and their lives would change forever. Leora knew she was not meant to stand among them, yet her heart ached with longing. She had dreamed of this moment for as long as she could remember, not for the crown, not for the honor, but for a chance to be seen, to matter, to step into the world and leave the shadows behind. Her decision was made with quiet resolve. She would go. The veil around her neck glimmered faintly as she draped it over her shoulders. It was not meant to make her beautiful, but to hide her face, to grant her a courage born of anonymity. She left her room with careful steps, descending the quiet staircases that wound through the castle like veins. Every creak of the stone echoed her heartbeat. Outside, the air was crisp and the snow lay in thin, white blankets along the edges of the courtyard. She could see the nobles gathering, their robes bright, their jewels glinting in the early sunlight. And there at the center stood him, Alpha King Kalen. Even from a distance, he commanded attention. His presence was magnetic, his gaze sharp, and though he spoke to no one yet, the room seemed to hold its breath at his mere stance. Leora felt a tremor of fear and awe. To approach him was to step into a storm, to risk exposure, ridicule, or worse. Yet beneath that fear there was something else, an inexplicable pull, as though the king's gaze could pierce the veil, see the heart beneath. She slipped into the crowd, moving with the rhythm of those around her, careful to stay unnoticed. The veil hid her features, but she knew it could not shield her entirely. Every step felt heavier than the last, but also freer. For the first time, she felt like she was acting on her own will, not bound by the cruel dictates of her stepmother. The ceremony began with a chime of crystal bells. Noblewomen stepped forward one by one, presenting themselves with practiced smiles and gestures of grace. Kaelin's gaze swept over them, indifferent yet calculating. When it landed on Leora, something stirred in the air. The veil around her seemed to shimmer faintly, catching a light that no one else noticed. She felt his gaze on her, stronger than she expected. Her breath caught, and a tremor ran through her body. Was it fear, or was it something else? Something that called to the deepest part of her soul? The moment stretched, delicate and unbearable. Leora dared not move, dared not breathe too loudly. And yet she could feel a shift in the king's attention. He did not look away. He did not smile. But something unspoken passed between them, a spark, a recognition, a question that neither dared voice. Then, a sharp, angry voice cut through the moment. "There! That girl!" Lady Vera's cry rang through the courtyard like a whip. "She is not worthy. Too plain, too weak. How dare she appear here?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Heads turned, and whispers rose like the wind through the trees. Leora's heart sank. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. All her courage, all her hope, hung in the balance as her stepmother's words echoed. Kaelin's gaze did not waver. He stepped forward, his presence commanding silence. The veil around Leora flickered, as if recognizing the danger and shielding her from the world's judgment. "Who speaks such cruelty?" His voice rang deep and clear, carrying over the courtyard. The nobles fell silent, sensing the weight of his authority. "Stand forward, child. Do not hide. I will see you for who you are." Leora's pulse raced. Could she trust him? Could she step forward and reveal herself? She felt the warmth of the veil, the faint glow of its threads. Perhaps, just perhaps, this was her moment. Not to prove beauty, but to show courage. She took a step. Then another. The crowd's whispers faded, replaced by the steady rhythm of her own heartbeat. Each beat said, "You are more than they believe. You are more than they see." The king's eyes followed her every move, unwavering, intense, as if he could sense the shadow of her past and the light she had kept hidden. Leora's hands trembled, but her steps grew bolder. She was walking into the storm, yet for the first time, she felt alive. And as she reached the center of the courtyard, under the eyes of nobles and the gaze of the Alpha King himself, Leora felt a strange, electric certainty. Something had shifted. The veil glimmered faintly, responding to a presence she could not name, a force she did not yet understand. Her heart caught in her throat. Today her life would change, though she did not yet know in what ways. And as Kaelin's gaze held hers, deep and unflinching, Leora realized that for the first time she was not merely a shadow. She was seen. And the story of her courage, her power, and her destiny was only beginning. The courtyard of Eldrath Castle was alive with color and movement. Noble women in gowns of gold, crimson, and sapphire moved with delicate grace, their jeweled crowns catching the morning light. Servants scurried along the edges, carrying trays of crystal goblets and baskets of flowers. Leora stood near the back, her heart pounding beneath the faintly glowing veil draped across her shoulders. Every breath she drew felt heavy with anticipation, fear, and a spark of hope she had not allowed herself in years. King Kaelin stood at the raised dais, his presence as commanding as the legends foretold. His robes were deep midnight blue, embroidered with silver threads that mimicked the stars in the sky. Every movement, every glance radiated authority. The nobles around him bowed, whispered, and shifted uneasily. But his gaze was sharp and unyielding, as though he could see through masks, veils, and false pretenses. As the ceremony began, the young women were called forward one by one. Each curtsied, each smiled, and each received Kaelin's measured inspection. Some tried to charm with elaborate gestures, others with whispered words meant only for him to hear. Leora watched from the shadows, feeling the pull of her stepmother's earlier words echo in her mind. Too plain. Too weak? No one will see you. But beneath that fear, a quiet flame stirred. She straightened her shoulders, and the faint glow of the veil seemed to respond, shimmering as if it understood her courage. She was hiding, yes, but not out of fear of being seen. She was hiding to protect herself until the right moment, until she could show who she truly was. Kaelin's gaze swept over the assembled women, His eyes were sharp, piercing, and unrelenting. And then he paused. For a fraction of a heartbeat, his attention lingered on a veiled figure at the back. On Leora. Something about her presence was unusual. She did not move with practiced grace, did not attempt to catch his attention with flattery or show. She simply stood, quiet and still, yet her aura spoke of resilience, of a spirit untouched by fear. A faint shimmer around her, almost imperceptible, caught his trained eye. Kalen had seen many things in his long years as Alpha King, but he had never seen someone who radiated quiet strength through a mere veil. Leora's heartbeat spiked. She felt the intensity of his gaze and realized that despite her fear, she was no longer invisible. She wanted to run, to hide once more, but something held her in place. A pull stronger than fear, a call she could not name. The king spoke, his voice carrying over the courtyard with calm authority. "Step forward, young women, and present yourselves with courage. Let your hearts be seen, not only your faces." Leora's breath caught. Courage, she whispered to herself. That word had always seemed distant, impossible, yet now it pulsed in her chest like a drumbeat, urging her forward. Slowly, she stepped from the shadows, letting the faint glow of the veil guide her steps. The crowd murmured, and a few whispers carried over the wind. Some spoke of the mysterious veiled girl, others of her quiet confidence. Kalen's eyes did not waver. He studied her with the precision of a hawk. There was no fear in his gaze, no judgment. Only curiosity and something far more profound, something unspoken, like the recognition of a hidden truth. Leora's mind raced. If he sees me, if he sees the real me, what will happen? She swallowed hard and let the veil drape over her face, hiding her features but not her presence. The magical threads of the veil responded, faintly glowing, shielding her from the judgment of the nobles and revealing only what mattered, the courage and quiet strength that pulsed in her heart. The nobles shifted, some whispering in awe, others in suspicion. Who is she? I've never seen her before. Does she dare stand among us? Their voices carried uneasily through the courtyard, but Kalen's attention never left her. Then, as the moment stretched, a sharp voice cut through the murmurs like a whip. Lady Vera's voice rang across the courtyard, dripping with venom. There, that girl! She is not worthy. She is too plain, too weak. How dare she show herself before the king? A hush fell over the crowd. Heads turned, eyes widening at the audacity of her stepmother's claim. Leora's pulse raced. For a moment she felt the crushing weight of shame pressing down, threatening to make her shrink into the shadows. But then she felt it. The warmth of the veil, the faint power hidden in its threads. It was not the power to change her appearance, but the power to hold her courage steady, to remind her of who she truly was. Kalen stepped forward, his deep voice cutting through the tension. Silence, he said, and the entire courtyard obeyed. His eyes, sharp and commanding, fixed on the veiled figure. Step forward, child. Let me see you, not as others judge you, but as you truly are. Leora's legs trembled, but she obeyed. Every step was heavy with fear, yet each step felt like breaking a chain. She could feel the gaze of the nobles, some judging, some curious, some silently impressed. But the king's gaze was different. It was a light that pierced the shadows surrounding her, seeing something she had long feared lost, her worth. As she reached the center of the courtyard, Kalen extended a hand, not in demand, but as a gesture of recognition. Do not fear to be seen, he said quietly, yet his voice carried to the far edges of the courtyard. There is strength in those who embrace themselves, not in those who hide behind appearances. The veil glimmered faintly, responding to his words. Leora felt a surge of courage. She dared to lift her chin to meet his gaze. She was not the beautiful, radiant noblewoman the kingdom might expect. She was something different, quiet, strong, and unafraid to face what had always terrified her. A ripple of whispers moved through the crowd. Some noble women looked uncomfortable, their carefully crafted confidence shaken by the veiled girl's courage. Others stared in awe, sensing that this was not an ordinary moment, that something extraordinary was unfolding before their eyes. Kalen's eyes narrowed slightly, studying her, and Leora felt the strange pull again. It was more than curiosity, more than interest, it was recognition. He saw something in her that others could not, a spark that could change everything. And in that moment, Leora understood. She was not just being judged. She was being chosen. But before anything else could happen, Vera's fury broke through again. Do you dare listen to him? Do you dare stand there as if you are worthy? You are nothing. The courtyard held its breath. The nobles looked between the veiled girl and the angry stepmother, unsure where their loyalties should lie. Leora's heart raced, but she did not falter. The king's hand moved slightly, a subtle gesture that seemed to shield her, and his voice rang louder than ever. You will not speak for her, Kaelin said. She will be seen for herself, not through the hatred of others. For a moment the wind seemed to hold still. Leora felt the veil tighten slightly, as if it were alive, affirming her courage. She was no longer simply hiding. She was standing in her own power, her own strength, her own destiny. Then Kaelin took a step closer, his gaze fixed on her face. Lift your veil, he said softly. Yet there was an unshakable command in his voice. Let me see the truth beneath. The courtyard fell silent. Leora's hands trembled as she touched the veil. She had hidden behind it for safety, for fear, for shame. But now, as the Alpha King himself requested it, the veil became a symbol of her choice. Slowly, with a mixture of fear and wonder, she reached up, and for the first time she felt the world change around her. The courtyard was silent, every breath caught in the collective chest of the gathered nobles. Leora's trembling hands hovered over the veil, its faint glow pulsing like a heartbeat. She had hidden behind it for years, hiding not only her face but her courage, her dreams, and her secret strength. Now King Kaelin's steady gaze urged her forward, asking her to reveal herself, not as others demanded, but as she truly was. With a deep breath, she lifted the veil. The threads shimmered in the sunlight, catching the morning breeze. For a moment, the light seemed to bend around her, and the courtyard gasped, not at her beauty, but at the quiet power that radiated from her. Her eyes, though plain by conventional standards, held a depth no one had ever noticed. They were eyes of someone who had suffered, endured, and grown stronger despite the shadows that had always surrounded her. Kaelin's gaze did not falter. If anything, it sharpened, piercing beyond appearances into the heart of her spirit. He stepped closer, letting the others watch but ignoring them completely. The nobles whispered among themselves, unsure what to make of this veiled girl who dared to reveal herself in defiance of the world's judgment. Lady Vera's face twisted in rage. You insolent child, she screamed, rushing forward. Do you think you belong here? How dare you show your face in my presence? Everyone sees now that you are nothing but a shadow unworthy of attention. Kaelin raised a hand, his voice calm but carrying the force of command. Enough, he said, and the words cut through the chaos like a blade. The crowd fell silent. She will not be judged by the words of those who seek to diminish her. Stand aside, Lady Vera, and let her be seen as she chooses. For the first time in her life, Leora felt a sense of validation. She had always believed that her worth was measured by how others saw her, by beauty, by status, by strength imposed from outside. But here, in this moment, she realized her true worth came from courage, from the ability to step forward even when the world demanded she shrink. The king extended his hand toward her, not as a noble gesture, but as a bridge. Do you understand the power you hold? He asked softly, his voice carrying through the courtyard with quiet authority, not through appearance, not through wealth or favor, but through heart, spirit, and courage. Leora's lips parted, but words failed her. She had never heard anyone speak with such clarity, seeing what mattered beyond the surface. She nodded slowly, a quiet understanding passing between them. The king's gaze lingered on her, intense and unwavering, as if he could see the history etched into her bones, the suffering and endurance that had made her who she was. Around them, the nobles murmured. Some were shocked, some impressed, some skeptical, but all eyes had turned to Leora. She was no longer the girl hiding in the shadows. She was visible not merely by form but by presence, by the undeniable strength she radiated. Lady Vera, sensing her influence slipping, tried one last attack. Do you truly believe you are worthy of the Alpha King? Do you not see that he will turn from you as all others have? Kaelin's eyes flashed with controlled intensity. She is worthy because she chooses courage, because she does not allow fear or cruelty to dictate her life. Worth is not given by inheritance nor stolen by deceit. It is claimed by those who dare to rise. The stepmother's face paled. She had underestimated not only Leora but the king himself. Kaelin had chosen to recognize the strength others had ignored, and in doing so, He had placed the power of judgment where it belonged, not in the hands of the cruel, but in the hands of the courageous. Leora felt a strange warmth in her chest. The veil, faintly glowing, seemed to hum with approval, acknowledging her bravery. She had stepped into the light, and in doing so she had transformed not herself alone, but the way the world saw her. For the first time she felt like she belonged. Kalen studied her closely, his gaze unwavering. "There is more to you than even the veil can show," he said softly. "Something ancient, something strong. Tell me, child, do you know what this power is?" Leora shook her head, though her heart raced at the implication. She had long suspected that the veil, the heirloom passed down from her mother, held a secret. It had always protected her, given her courage, and now it seemed to resonate with something deeper, something tied to her very bloodline. "Then we shall discover it together," Kalen said, his voice a promise as much as a command. "You have drawn the attention of many today, but do not fear. I will ensure that your path is not dictated by those who wish to harm you." The crowd around them shifted uneasily. Some noble women tried to hide their astonishment, while others openly whispered admiration. Few had seen anyone claim space in such a commanding way, without regard for judgment or expectation. Leora had become more than a girl at a ceremony. She had become a symbol of courage, of hidden power realized. Lady Vera, still fuming, retreated slightly, though her mind worked furiously. She would not allow Leora to take her place, not without attempting to seize control, yet even she could not ignore the undeniable fact. The king had chosen to see Leora's heart and strength above all else. That decision had shifted the balance of power in the courtyard in an instant. Kalen extended his hand again, a silent invitation to step forward, to claim her place. Leora took it, feeling the firmness of his grasp, the unspoken assurance that she was no longer alone. The crowd held its collective breath as the two stood together, a king and a girl who had been told she was nothing, now visible in her own right. The ceremony continued around them, but it felt smaller, almost trivial compared to the moment they shared. Leora's presence altered the air itself. She could sense the whispers, the glances, and the subtle shifts in posture among the nobles, but none of it mattered. She had taken the first step toward her destiny. Kalen's gaze softened, though it remained intense. "You have courage, but be warned," he said quietly. "Not all in this kingdom will accept it. Your path will be tested, your strength challenged. Shadows linger in unexpected places, and there are those who will seek to take advantage of your gift." The words sent a shiver down her spine. Even as she felt exhilaration and triumph, she understood the truth in them. To be seen by the king was not the end of the journey. It was the beginning of a far greater challenge. Suddenly, a faint disturbance rippled across the courtyard, almost imperceptible. A cold wind swept through, carrying with it the scent of ancient forests and something older, darker. The glow of the veil pulsed stronger, almost as if warning her. Leora glanced around, sensing a presence she could not yet name, something tied to her bloodline and the ancient magic it held. Kalen noticed the subtle shift as well. His eyes narrowed, scanning the edges of the courtyard and beyond. "Be wary," he murmured, more to himself than to Leora. "The shadows are awakening." Leora's heart raced. For years she had hidden, had feared the judgments of others. Now, standing in the light, she realized that the world held dangers far beyond the scrutiny of nobles or the cruelty of a stepmother. There were forces older and darker, forces that would challenge everything she believed about herself. Yet she did not feel fear alone. There was a strange thrill in knowing that she had been chosen, that she had been seen, that she was no longer invisible. The glow of the veil wrapped around her like a shield, a promise that she could face whatever lay ahead. The king's voice broke through the moment. "You have taken the first step," Kalen said, "but the true trial has only just begun. Are you ready to embrace what is to come?" Leora's gaze met his, steady and unwavering. "I am," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "I will not hide again." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some nobles whispered awe, others confusion, and a few fear. They had witnessed not just a girl revealed, but a power and courage that none had expected. And in the midst of it all, Lady Vera's fury burned hotter than ever. Kalen's hand lingered near the veil, sensing the hidden magic that pulsed faintly through its threads. He did not yet know the full extent of its power, but he felt its significance, a connection to something ancient and vital. And Leora, standing in the sunlight at last, knew that she had begun a journey that would change her life, and the kingdom forever. The ceremony ended, the nobles dispersing with whispers and sideways glances. But for Leora, the moment of victory was only temporary. The shadows that lingered in her family's past were stirring, and the stepmother who had tried to suppress her would not rest. The true challenges were waiting beyond the walls of the courtyard, and Leora felt both fear and determination in equal measure. She had been seen. She had been recognized, and now the world and the shadows within it would come to test her. The evening air in Eldrath Castle carried a chill that seemed older than the stones themselves. Shadows stretched long across the courtyards and halls, curling like fingers toward every corner. Leora sat in the quiet of her chamber, the faint glow of her veil still pulsing softly around her shoulders. Her hands trembled slightly, though not from fear alone. The events of the day had left her exhilarated but also uneasy. The attention she had received from King Kaelin, the veiled recognition and the whispers of the nobles had stirred something far older than she could understand. A soft knock on the door drew her gaze. It was the king himself. Kaelin entered, his presence both commanding and protective. And for a moment the room seemed smaller, filled entirely by the weight of his gaze. "You have faced the world today," he said, his voice calm yet firm. "Few can do what you have done without faltering. But there are matters that go beyond courage. There are shadows in your bloodline, shadows that have lingered for centuries." Leora's heart skipped a beat. She had always sensed there was more to her family than she understood. Her mother's death had left questions, and her stepmother's cruelty had hidden answers. Now Kaelin's words made her blood run cold. "Shadows?" she asked, voice trembling. "What do you mean?" He moved closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "Your family carries the shadowed line," he said. "It is an ancient curse. The women of your blood are bound to be rejected, to suffer unless the line is broken by acts of courage and love. Until now, no one has been able to rise above it. That is why your stepmother's words carry power. She knows the weight that has been passed to you." Leora sank to the edge of her chair, feeling the room spin slightly. The veil's glow intensified, as if reacting to the truth spoken aloud. She had always known she was different, that she carried something hidden but a curse. That explained so much, the whispers she overheard in the castle, the feeling of being shadowed in every room she entered, the constant suppression from Vera, and now, Kaelin continued, "You have been seen. The veil revealed more than your courage. It revealed the potential in your bloodline, but the curse is stirring. It will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine." Leora's hands clenched the fabric of her gown. "Test me. How?" "The shadowed line manifests in many ways," Kaelin said, his eyes sharp and measured. "It can twist perception, awaken fear, and draw danger from unexpected places. You may face betrayal, attempts to harm you, and illusions meant to make you doubt your worth. But you are not alone." He knelt slightly, placing a hand lightly over hers. "I will stand with you. But you must face it, not flee from it." The words were both a comfort and a challenge. Leora realized that courage alone would not be enough. She needed to understand the curse, to learn its limits and its rules if she hoped to survive it. That night, sleep eluded her. The castle was silent, but her mind was alive with thoughts. Images flickered through her mind. Her mother's face, pale and beautiful. Her stepmother's harsh eyes, the glow of the veil. She felt the weight of generations pressing down, and yet, beneath the fear, a fire stirred. She rose and moved to the window, gazing out over the castle walls. The forest beyond was silvered with moonlight, each tree a shadowed sentinel. She whispered into the cold night air, "I will not be a shadow anymore. I will be seen. I will be strong." The next morning, the court resumed its activities. Lady Vera, humiliated yet cunning, whispered to the nobles about the mysterious girl who had dared to stand before the king. Some listened, fearing Vera's influence. Others wondered why Kaelin had chosen to protect her. But Leora paid them little mind. She focused instead on understanding her own strength and the strange power flowing through her veins. Kaelin found her again during a walk through the northern gardens. The moonlight had not yet faded, and frost clung to the leaves like tiny diamonds. "You have the courage to face the curse," he said, "but courage must be guided by knowledge. You cannot fight what you do not understand." Leora nodded. "Then teach me," she said. "I want to understand what is inside me. I want to break it, whatever it is." Kaelin's eyes softened. "That is why I brought you here. he said, leading her to a small hidden grove within the castle grounds. The grove was ancient, filled with silver-leafed trees and moss that shimmered faintly in the dawn. In the center lay a stone pedestal carved with runes older than any living history. "This is a place of learning, of understanding the bloodlines of Eldrath. Your veil will guide you, but your courage will determine if the magic within can awaken." Leora stepped forward, placing her hands on the stone. The runes glowed faintly, responding to her presence. She felt the warmth of her veil merge with the power in the pedestal, a connection that made her chest tingle. Images of her ancestors flashed through her mind. Women who had faced despair, who had been hidden, oppressed, and yet had left traces of strength. She realized she carried all of that within her, but knowledge alone was not enough. As she concentrated, a shadow flickered across the edge of the grove. It was subtle at first, a ripple in the air, a cold touch on the back of her neck. Then it solidified into a dark humanoid form, its eyes glowing faintly red. Leora froze, fear creeping into her chest. The shadowed line was not just a curse of rejection. It could manifest, test, and challenge her directly. Kalen stepped in front of her immediately, his hand resting on the hilt of a small ceremonial blade at his waist. "Do not fear it," he said. "The shadow is part of the curse, but you have already begun to rise above it. Face it." Leora took a deep breath, remembering the courage she had summoned at the ceremony. Slowly, deliberately, she lifted her hands, letting the magic of the veil flow outward. The shadow recoiled slightly, as if sensing her strength, but it did not disappear. "You cannot hide behind fear," Kalen's voice urged. "You must embrace what you are. You are not weak, and you are not alone." Leora's chest swelled with determination. She realized the shadow was not invincible. It was a reflection of the doubt and cruelty that had always surrounded her, and she was stronger than that. She stepped forward, letting the veil's light illuminate her path. The shadow hissed, twisting and writhing, but gradually it began to fade, retreating into the darkness from which it came. Leora's breath came in shaky bursts, but a smile touched her lips. She had faced the first manifestation of the curse, and she had not faltered. Kalen stepped closer, his eyes reflecting pride and something deeper, something unspoken. "You have taken the first step," he said quietly. "There will be more shadows, more trials. But today, you proved that courage and heart can defy what has long been thought inevitable." Leora looked up at him, the bond between them growing stronger. She realized that the Alpha King was not only a protector but also a guide, a companion who would walk beside her through darkness and light alike. Their connection went beyond admiration. It was a recognition of shared strength, an unspoken promise that together they could face anything. Yet even as relief settled in, a flicker of unease remained. She sensed her stepmother's plotting, the hidden dangers of the court, and the deeper mysteries of the shadowed line that were yet to reveal themselves. Leora understood that courage alone would not be enough. Knowledge, strategy, and trust in those who stood with her, especially Kalen, would be essential. The veil pulsed softly around her shoulders, a reminder that she carried more than just her own strength. She carried the legacy of her ancestors, the protection of the king, and the power of her own heart. And as she gazed into the silver forest beyond the castle walls, she felt a strange mixture of fear, hope, and exhilaration. The curse was awakening, the shadows moving in secret. But Leora had learned something vital. She was no longer powerless, no longer defined by cruelty or rejection. She was a force to be reckoned with, a girl who could stand in the light and face whatever darkness dared to rise against her. And in that moment, she vowed silently, she would not merely survive the shadowed line. She would conquer it, reveal its secrets, and reshape her destiny. The first light of dawn broke across Eldrath Castle, spilling gold and amber across the frost-tipped gardens. Leora stood at the edge of the northern grove, the veil now a soft, glowing mantle over her shoulders. The air felt charged, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Today, the curse of the shadowed line would test her in ways that would decide her fate, and the fate of the kingdom. Kalen approached quietly, his armor faintly catching the morning sun. His eyes, sharp yet gentle, met hers. "The curse is stirring," he said softly. "Its trials will take many forms, shadows, illusions. Even those closest to you may act against you. Remember this. Courage and heart are your weapons, and I stand with you." Leora nodded, the gravity of the day pressing down on her, but she did not falter. She felt the power within her, awakened and responding to her resolve. The veil shimmered brighter as if approving, a conduit to the strength and legacy hidden in her bloodline. The first sign of the trial appeared almost immediately. From the edges of the grove, a shadow rose, dark and writhing, forming a figure that resembled her stepmother. Lady Vera's mocking smile appeared on its spectral face, eyes glittering with cruelty. "You think you are worthy?" the shadow hissed, voice echoing unnaturally. "You are nothing. The king may admire you now, but he will see your true place soon enough." Leora's chest tightened, but she remembered Kaelin's words. Courage and heart were her weapons. She took a step forward, letting the veil's glow intensify, and spoke with a voice that was steadier than she felt. "I am not nothing. I am the daughter of the shadowed line, and I will not be broken by your lies or cruelty. I am stronger than you imagine." The shadow laughed, a sound that twisted the air like ice. Then it lunged forward, trying to engulf her in darkness. Leora raised her hands, letting the power of the veil radiate outward. Light met shadow, and for a moment the forest itself seemed to vibrate with energy. Kaelin stepped beside her, drawing his ceremonial blade. "Do not fear the reflection of cruelty," he said. "Strike with courage, not anger." Together they faced the shadow. Leora's light clashed with its darkness, each pulse of power shaking the grove. The shadow writhed, its form distorting, as if struggling to maintain itself against the combined strength of courage and protection. Then, Leora remembered the lessons of her ancestors, glimpses of which had appeared when she first touched the rune pedestal. The women of her line had faced despair, but they had used their inner strength to rise. Drawing on that memory, she focused not on defeating the shadow with brute force, but on acknowledging its presence and standing firm. The shadow recoiled, its form flickering as though unsure of itself. Leora's light did not push to destroy. It illuminated. It revealed the fear, the envy, and the cruelty that had fueled the curse all these years. And slowly the shadow dissolved, leaving only a wisp of darkness that drifted back into the forest. Leora fell to her knees, breathing hard, but a smile touched her lips. The first trial had been overcome. She had faced the manifestation of fear and cruelty and had not faltered. Her courage, paired with Kaelin's unwavering support, had transformed the curse's shadow into something manageable, something she could control. Kaelin knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You have done more than I imagined," he said quietly. "The shadowed line may test you, but you have shown that strength is not given. It is claimed." Leora's gaze lifted to him, her heart swelling with something deeper than triumph. The bond between them, forged in courage and recognition, had become unbreakable. She realized that her destiny was no longer just about surviving a curse. It was about embracing the path that had been waiting for her, hidden in her bloodline, waiting for someone brave enough to claim it. But even as she savored the victory, a new sound reached her ears, a whisper carried on the wind, faint yet distinct. Lady Vera's voice, though distant, carried an unmistakable menace. "This is not over, child," it said. "You may have survived today, but darkness has many forms. The kingdom will not let one like you rise without challenge." Leora's smile hardened. She would not be afraid. "Then I will face it," she said to the wind and to the echo of her ancestors' strength. "Whatever comes, I will not hide. I will be seen. I will stand." Kaelin's gaze softened, pride and something unspoken mingling in his eyes. "Then let us finish this," he said. Together, the day unfolded into a series of subtle trials, each testing her courage and resolve. Strange illusions appeared, visions of failure, of ridicule, of being cast aside. At each step, Leora held her ground. The veil's glow responded to her determination, shielding her from despair and guiding her steps. Kaelin's presence was constant, a quiet reassurance and protection, yet never overbearing. She understood that she was not only facing external threats, but the shadows of her own doubts. By mid-afternoon, the final trial arrived. A dark mist rolled over the castle grounds, thick and suffocating. From within it emerged forms both human and animal, creatures shaped from fear and anger, a twisted mirror of the world she had endured. At the center, a shadowy version of herself stood, eyes burning with all the shame and insecurity she had carried for years. "You are weak," it whispered. "You will fail. You are not worthy of love, of respect, of power." Leora felt the weight of the words, but she drew in a deep breath, grounding herself. She thought of the ceremony, the moment Kaelin had seen her true worth, and the first trial she had conquered. She remembered the glow of the veil, the courage of her ancestors and the promise she had made to herself. "I am not weak," she said, her voice steady, strong. "I am the daughter of the shadowed line, and I claim my destiny. I am worthy because I choose to be. I am seen, and I will not hide." The shadow hissed and lunged forward, but Leora met it head-on. Her light flared, brighter than ever, illuminating the mist and revealing the illusions for what they were. Shadows with no substance beyond the power she gave them. The shadow of herself faltered, then shattered, dissolving into harmless wisps of smoke that drifted into the sky. The mist cleared, and the sun broke fully over Eldrath Castle. The frost on the leaves melted, and the forest seemed to breathe with renewed life. Leora stood tall, the veil's glow now soft and steady, a symbol of control and mastery rather than fear. She had faced the curse, faced the shadows, and emerged victorious. Kaelin approached her once more, kneeling briefly before standing again. "You have done what no one else could," he said. "The shadowed line's curse is broken, not by might alone, but by heart, courage, and choice. You have claimed your destiny, Leora." Tears sprang to her eyes, not of fear, but of triumph and relief. She had endured years of cruelty, rejection, and fear, and now she was free to be herself, to be seen, and to embrace the life she had always been denied. Leora turned to Kaelin, her heart full of gratitude, admiration, and something deeper that had quietly grown through their trials. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me, for standing with me, for believing." Kaelin smiled, a rare softness in his eyes. "It is not I who chose, but fate and your courage. You have earned every honor, every recognition, and now you will shape your own future." The nobles who had watched from afar now looked upon her with awe and respect. Lady Vera, finally realizing that her cruelty and schemes had been undone, retreated into silence. The kingdom had witnessed the rise of someone extraordinary, not through wealth, beauty, or influence, but through heart, courage, and the strength to embrace destiny. Leora knew that challenges might come again, but for the first time she felt invincible, not because she was alone, but because she had faced shadows and emerged stronger, and because she had allies she could trust. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden light across the castle and the grove, Kaelin and Leora walked together through the gardens. Side by side, they were no longer merely king and subject, nor mentor and pupil. They were equals in strength, courage, and purpose. And though the shadowed line had once promised suffering and rejection, it had now given birth to something far greater. A young woman who could face any darkness, and a bond with a king that could endure any trial. The kingdom would remember this day, not just as a ceremony, but as the moment a girl who had been told she was nothing claimed her destiny, shattered a curse, and stepped fully into the light, with the Alpha King by her side. Leora lifted her head to the sky, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. The veil shimmered faintly, no longer a shield of fear, but a symbol of her power and triumph. She had been seen. She had been recognized. And now she was unstoppable,